Hey, geometry. Here to talk to you today about coordinate geometry, which is when we take things that we've learned in class this year and we put them on the coordinate plane, aka graphs. So, here are a few things that we're going to need to remember in order to work with coordinate geometry. Obviously, first thing is coordinates, which is a point's location on a graph, also known as x comma y. And I like to color code my x's in orange and my y's in blue. Next is the distance formula, which tells us the length of a line segment. So here's the distance formula that we've worked with this year. I'm going to color code my x's and my y's, and that's the distance formula. The midpoint formula tells us the halfway point of a line segment. So here's what that midpoint formula looks like again. Going to color code where the x's go and where the y's go. Next is the slope formula. Remember that you learned this in algebra. Slope is the change in y divided by the change in x, or the slant of a line. Sometimes we talk about slope as rise over run, but as a formula, we've got y minus y on top, x minus x on bottom. Next, we've got two kinds of lines. The first is parallel lines. Parallel lines never touch because they travel in the same direction. Here's an example of what parallel lines might look like. These lines never touch. They're traveling in the same direction. They're parallel. And what I really want you guys to know about parallel lines is that they have the same slopes, like 2/3 and 2/3. Both of those lines could have the slope 2/3. If they're parallel, their slopes will be the same. The next kind of lines is perpendicular lines, which make 90 degrees. An example of perpendicular lines might be two lines that look like this. If they're perpendicular and they make 90 degrees, we should have a right angle. What I really want you guys to know about perpendicular lines is that their slopes are negative reciprocals. And here's an example: 2/3 and -3/2. Those are negative reciprocals. Perpendicular lines have negative reciprocal slopes. So we're going to do a couple example problems here. The first example problem says the graph of line J is below. What would be the slope of a line parallel to line J? Obviously, we're talking about slope for this problem. The slope of a line parallel. Parallel means same slope. The same slope as line J. Here is what a parallel line to line J might look like. Remember, traveling in the same direction, never touch. The slope of that green line is going to be the same as whatever the slope of line J is. So, let's set up the slope formula. Remember, the slope formula is basically y minus y over x minus x. And I've got the coordinates already written on the graph. So I'm going to color code them. Now let's substitute. The first y value is -4. The other y value is -1. The first x value is -4. The other x value is 3. Now we're going to simplify. -4 minus -1 makes -3. -4 minus 3 makes -7. I'm going to continue simplifying by turning both of these negatives positive, because two negatives make a positive. And that means 3/7 is the slope of j. And that would actually be the same slope of our green line. So I'm going to go up to answer choice A and box that in. The next example problem says the graph of line K is below. What would be the slope of a line perpendicular to line K? So obviously we're talking about slope again for this problem, but this time slope of a line perpendicular. And remember, above we learned that perpendicular lines, their slopes are negative reciprocals. So here is what a perpendicular line might look like on this graph. So to know the slope of that pink line, we are going to need to find the slope of line K and then find its negative reciprocal. Let me get some coordinates on here for these 2 points that we have on line K. Down here, we're going to have -2, -2, and up here, we're going to have 2, 4. I'm going to color code these again. And then I'm going to set up the slope formula. Basically, y minus y over x minus x. Now I'm going to substitute. First y value is -2. The other y value is 4. The first x value is -2. The other x value is 2. Now I'm going to simplify. We get -6 over -4. And I'm going to keep simplifying. Going to make both of these negatives positive. And I'm going to reduce these values down to 3/2. But I'm not going to stop and say that 3/2 is the final answer, because we still have to take the negative reciprocal. So to take the negative reciprocal, we're going to turn this negative, and we are going to flip these values. So 2 is in the numerator and 3 is in the denominator. So altogether, that makes the negative reciprocal -2/3. And then I'm going to go select answer choice D.